creator, now bowing to the created. Now I can stand bolder, my heart and mind are sober. Looking to see a sign, my staff turned to a cobra. With magic they did the same, refused to fear his name. Hearts remain hard till their firstborns were slain. The knowledge you have is vain. Chakras and kundalinis, Kabbalah, tree of life, witchcraft and genies, mystery school teaching. Of course it gotta be right, you know it all. Tell how to gain eternal life. Were you there when he made the earth? When he formed man's bones, only used the dirt. Were you there when he made the planets? Please tell me how he did it if you understand it. Were you there when he made the heavens? And all their array rested on the seventh. All you have is speculation and theories. Gave us basic commands, we comprehend them clearly. What's the purpose of living? What's the purpose of dying? Who do you believe when everybody is lying? How do you wait fire? Count the sands of the seas. Tell me how many stars throughout the galaxy. Some things only God knows. If questions linger in your mind till your eyes close. But here's something you can understand. Fear Yah and his commands, the duty of man. While you still have a chance, fear Yah and his commands, the duty of man. While you still have a chance, fear Yah and his commands, the duty of man.
Hey, shalom, 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 fam. Y'all bless to everybody listening. By Hashem Yahusha Hamashiach. We're going to be discussing how to check your calendar. How to check your calendar. Had a few questions about this. This is going to be an amendment to the previous we did on the Hebrew calendar. And I'm gonna just dig right into it. So this really could have been a very long, very windy message. And because I found so much information on the history of the calendar, on the history of the alternative calendars that we see out there, whether it's the lunar calendars and all of that, because I found so much history, I was really tempted to put all of that into one video, but at the wise counsel of my Isha, I decided to go ahead and break this down and just do one video. Originally, this was going to be a Kodesh moment, so a much shorter video, but it's a little bit more information than that. So we're just going to do this as a study on how to check your calendar, right? So the questions that I received from several of you guys was about where the calendar begins, how to begin the calendar. And one of the things that we were still checking into and didn't have a full understanding, and why this is an amendment to the other video, is the equinox and the equilux. Okay, the equinox and the equilux. So let's jump right in. Okay, if you do a study on the equinox, Equinox, this literally means equal night. That's the definition of the word. Equinox means equal night. Whereas by comparison, if you look up the equilux, this is a word that means equal day and night, and it means equal day and night depending on where your geographical location is in the earth. So in our original study, we were trying to figure out how to begin the calendar based on what the equal day and equal night were, presuming that Enoch would have written this information out based upon where he was located at in the land of Jerusalem, in and around the land of Jerusalem. However, in digging further into the research, that's not what you need. That's not what you need. What you need is the equinox, okay? And equinox literally is when the night and the day are equal, no matter where you are on earth. No matter where you are. Okay, so here's the thing, right? When you're looking up on the internet, when they say the equinox is, that may get you close, right? But what we really need to do is we really need to learn how to use the sundial, because the sundial is going to help you determine even closer when the equinox is. Okay, and equinox is going to closely line up with what Enoch describes as the Tekufa. Enoch helps. Enoch helps. Because if you go back to Enoch again and look at Enoch chapter 72, verses 19 through 20, what happens is, and we've read this several times, but you know how it is as you study, as Yah reveals things and he opens your eyes to things, you start to see things in a different light. And I'm going to insert a video to show you what I saw as I was digging. But basically what happens is when you read Enoch 72, verses 19 through 20, you read where Enoch describes the sun coming through the fourth gate, and this being the 31st day of the last month of the year, completing the 364-day cycle. And this completes the year, and it shows you where the Tekufa is, right? So I'm going to insert this video clip. Check this out.
Okay, so Equinox versus Equilux. I didn't know there was such a thing as the Equinox until just a few days ago. But anyway, if you're like me, you probably read the Book of Enoch and realized that the first day of the first month should have equal amounts of daylight as it does darkness. So one 24-hour day cycle split exactly in half. 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of nighttime. Well, when I started to look into this for the first time, I wasn't quite sure where to start or what I was even looking at. Like, was the equinox, or I didn't know about the equinox yet, but was the equinox some sort of mystical moment when the stars aligned? Eventually I realized that we were talking about an entire daylight portion of a day. So, the daylight portion in the spring that has exactly 12 hours in it, not some mystical moment somewhere around noon. It's actually an entire day of 12 hours. So in other words, it's kind of hard to miss. And I then found myself asking Google when the equinox was happening this year. Then I tried to find some daylight versus darkness data online, and I was shocked to discover that the quote-unquote Google proclaimed equinox did not have equal daylight and equal darkness in it in that one 24-hour cycle. I then discovered there was another term called the equilux, and that was the technical name for the day that actually possessed equal daylight and equal darkness. Then I learned that the equilux, it varies greatly depending on where you're located on the globe, or whatever, on the Earth. So the next question became, where is the correct place on the planet to base the equilux off of if it varies so much? So I was really getting hung up on the fact that Enoch says we need to have equal day and equal darkness in the day of the quote-unquote equinox. So long story short, after much research, counseling, and prayer, I finally came to the realization that I think there is only one spot or one line on the Earth where the equinox actually occurs at the same time as the equinox, right on the equator. So the first idea that came to me was maybe Enoch lived near the equator, so the observations he made captured the fact that equal day and equal darkness, he captured that simply due to his location. But then I look it up on a map, and Enoch's neck of the woods wasn't quite as close to the equator as I thought it might be. I guess I did do well in geography, but I guess I just haven't looked at where things are located in a while. Anyway, so next, another thought came to me. I thought perhaps the angel Uriel took Enoch, up into heaven above the equator somewhere. So that would explain why Enoch saw equal day and darkness. And throughout the Book of Enoch, it sounds like he's flying all over the heavens, checking stuff out. So it didn't seem too far-fetched. Well, I guess it was earlier this evening. I tell you, I think Yah has been moving. I hear so many people digging into these things lately, questions, all working together to figure this out. And, well, this was something that was hanging me up, and this was something that, big deal, that I've been trying to figure out. But it literally just this evening, and when the clarity came on this topic, that's when I was like, okay, now I've got to share this info. But it was literally just I guess yesterday evening. It's getting late tonight. I guess it depends on what's a day, I guess. Anyway, okay, I sat down with my printed Book of Enoch, hoping to discover this little detail about the location of the angel and Enoch, where they were when they observed these luminaries, because that would determine, where this equinox was, where did they observe it. So I said a quick prayer, and then I began to read. And in the beginning of the calendar section of the Book of Enoch, I wasn't seeing anything that described Enoch or the angel's location. So I began to wonder if I would have to backtrack into Enoch to see if any info regarding their location was available. At the moment I was about to do that, my eyes drifted down a little more into the calendar section, and I saw it. And I believe it has to do with the 6 portals mentioned in the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch says on the first day of the first month, the first day of the first month occurs in the 4th great portal. And I think I mentioned that in kind of the overview of Enoch video that I did. So the beginning of the 4th great portal, if you look at the picture, puts you exactly at the center of the 6 portals. In other words, directly over the equator. So yeah, I guess I had a picture of that. Hand sketch portal run. Yeah, so that it's just showing like the east and the west and the way those portals stack on each other and where the middle is, So it doesn't really matter the exact location of where Enoch and the angel might have been observing the luminaries. The angel told him exactly where the sun would be located the first day of this month, in the 4th great portal directly over the equator. And that was a much better answer than I could have ever hoped for. So I guess that essentially clarified that, it was a coincidence that equilux and the equinox occurred at the same time, like that equal day and equal night moment. It was literally over the equator that he observed it. So as you move around the globe, the big thing is that these seasonal days, the equinoxes and the solstices, they separate the seasons. So the equilux really varies so much. Like if you're up in the North Pole or something, I think it's like non-existent, because you just have, you never get it, you'll never get equal day and equal night. So really the timepiece we need to be paying attention to is the equinox, not the equilux. It is important to have equal light and equal day, but that was very specifically explained as being right over the equator, where they do actually happen at the same time. But as you move over the globe anywhere, you do want to use the equinox. And I have a video, I'm going to be putting a video out with the sundials of how you can verify that. And you want to be careful about the data online. I can't remember if I'm going to mention it in another video, but there are some people going by I might have mentioned it in this video, but there are some people going by the Google proclaimed equinox, and that doesn't really match the actual equinox. Like I think the creator really wanted us. I don't know what the government or technology is up to, what kind of calculations they're running to make things work out, like their leap year or whatever. But I do think we need to try and be out there kind of observing these things for ourselves and not so heavily relying on technology, because there are some discrepancies. And yeah, I recommend you check out the video on the sundials for more information on them. Okay? Shalom and Yah bless.
Okay? So, based on that video clip, as you can see, and I found some more information also confirming the same thing. If you were to envision looking down at the earth as a flat structure, okay, and you were to draw the lines of the gates across the earth's surface, right, and number those gates 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth, the fourth gate would traverse, if the sun was entering through one gate and exiting through the other, it would traverse what we would refer to as the equator, right? Whatever you want to call it, it would traverse that middle line on the Earth's surface. And that's why you would have an equal time frame of night and day, because the sun would be shining equally across the whole plane of the Earth, if that makes sense, okay? So once you understand that, the next thing that I wanted to point out to you in checking your calendar is there are actual days, according to scripture, that if you do a little bit of math, you can find out where these days fall on your calendar. And because we understand that Yahuwah's calendar is fixed and it does not change, well, if you see that this certain day, this certain month of a day fell on this particular day of the week, in scripture, it should fall on the same, it should fall on the same day of the week on your calendar. I hope you're following me with that, okay? So let's start with day one of the year, right? So your first day of the year on your calendar, on the set apart calendar, the calendar that we are all trying to reclaim, right? The Hebrew calendar, should begin on what we refer to as Wednesday. Okay? It should begin on Wednesday. And to verify this, we're going to look at the creation week, right? Look at the creation week. So let's go through it. We're going to start in Genesis chapter 1, looking at verses 1 through 5. Follow me over there. Okay, so here we are, Genesis chapter 1, beginning at verse 1. And what we read is, in the beginning, Yahuwah created the heavens and the earth came to be formless and empty, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of Yahuwah was moving on the face of the waters. And Yahuwah said, "Let there be light," and light came to be. And Yahuwah saw the light that it was good, and Yahuwah separated the light from the darkness. And Yahuwah called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, one day, right? So, day one, you've got the main thing I want you to focus on, heavens and earth created, day one, okay? Let's move on to Genesis chapter 1, verses 6 through 8. 6 through 8. And Yahuwah said, "Let an expanse come to be in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." And Yahuwah made the expanse and separated the waters which are under the expanse from the waters which are above the expanse. And it came to be so. And Yahuwah called the expanse heavens. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning the second day. Okay, so day two, you got the waters being separated. We agree? On day two, you got the waters being separated. The expanse. Okay? Let's look at Genesis 1, picking up at verse 9, going through 13. And it says, "And Yahuwah said, Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together in one place, and let dry land appear. And it came to be so. And Yahuwah called the dry land earth, or Eretz, and the collection of waters he called seas. And Yahuwah saw that it was good. And Yahuwah said, Let the earth bring forth grass, the plant that yields seed, the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind, and whose seed is in itself on the earth. And it came to be so. And the earth brought forth grass, the plant that yields seed according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And Yahuwah saw that it was good, and there came to be evening, and there came to be morning the third day. Okay, so here we are, day 3. We've got land, trees, fruit, grass. But here's what I want you to understand. For your yearly calendar, day 3, at the end of day 3, is going to be where you find your Tekufa, which is equal day, equal night, or what we refer to as the Equinox. The Equinox, okay? Again, you're going to read more about that in Enoch chapter 72, verses 19 through 20. Here's the reason why. Let's go on to Genesis chapter 1, reading verses 14 through 19. And it says, And Yahuwah said, Let lights come to be in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night. Lights in the heavens to separate day from night, and let them be for signs and moedim. So remember, moedim is appointed times. Yahuwah's appointed times. Whose appointed times? Yahuwah's appointed times. These are the same things that most of us commonly refer to as feast days. Moedim, appointed times. And for days and years. So these lights are for signs, appointed times, and for days and years. Got it? And let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth. And it came to be so. And Yahuwah made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. And Yahuwah set them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And Yahuwah saw that it was good, and there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, day 4. Got it? So, on day 4, what do we have? We have the sun, the moon, and the stars created, also known as time. So, the reason I say your calendar is going to begin on Wednesday is because Wednesday is the day that time and a timekeeping mechanism was established by Yahuwah for us, for signs, appointed times, for days and years. Read it again. That's what we just read. I pray we agree on that. Okay. So Genesis 1, 20 through 23. Day 5, you have sea and air creatures created. You can read through that. Genesis 1, 24 through 31 is day 6. In day 6, you have livestock, creeping creatures, and man and woman are created. All those things happen on day 6. And then, of course, on day 7, in Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, Yahuwah has completed his work, and this day is instituted as rest for us. Make sense? Pray that makes sense. Okay? So now let's move on. So that's a date that you can hinge your calendar upon. Okay? That's one day. That's number 1. Your first day of the year, day 1 out of 364 days. Out of 364 days. Okay? Should be a Wednesday. Okay? If you find that you try to find the equinox and it's on a Monday or a Tuesday, just understand that it's not you that's off, it's them that's off, because scripturally your calendar needs to begin on that next Wednesday. Okay? Good. Now, we're going to verify that though. So these are some more dates that you can test your calendar by. Okay? Let's look at the book of Exodus. We're going to go to chapter 16 and read verses 1 through 5. Exodus chapter 16, verses 1 through 5. All right. And it says, And they set out of Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the new. This month is Kadash. Okay, I know in your English you may have a translation that reads moon, but in the Hebrew it's Kadash, that is month. Okay, and you may be reading the translation that says month. Hallelujah, if that's what you have. But this is the 15th day of the second new month, of the second month, after they're going out of the land of Egypt. Okay, so we come out of Egypt. This is the 15th day of the second month. That's a time stamp. Keep that in mind. And all the congregation of the children of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aharon in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, if only we had died by the hand of Yahuwah in the land of Mitzrayim, when we sat by the pots of meat, and when we ate bread to satisfaction. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to put all this assembly to death with hunger. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, see, I am raining bread from the heavens for you. And the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, in order to try them whether they walk in my Torah, my instructions, or not. And it shall be on the 6th day that they shall prepare what they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. Twice as much as they gather daily. So this is the account of the manna. We should remember that, right? So what Yahuwah is saying is to Moses, look, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you on day 1 manna, on day 2 manna, on day 3 manna, all the way up to day 6. On day 6, I'm going to give you 2 portions of manna for every person of every household. Collect that double portion of manna, because on day 7, when you go out into the fields, there will not be manna there for you. We familiar with this account? That 7th day is a Sabbath. Understand? So here's what happens, right? He's giving them this in advance of the week to come. He has spoken to Moses on this Friday prior to. Okay? On this Friday prior to. Then evening comes and you have a Shabbat. And after that Shabbat, you have the first day of the week, which we all refer to these days in the common era as Sunday. Sunday would begin your first day's count of that first day of manna. That would be the 17th day of the second month. Okay? Month 2, day number 17. And if you start with day number 17 and count all the way up until that 6th day, that Friday, you would wind up with the 22nd day of the second month, which would make the 23rd day of the second month a Sabbath. Okay? So you got a whole week there in your second month on your calendar that you should be able to walk back from the 23rd being the Sabbath, the 22nd being Friday, so on and so forth. Got it? That's one witness. And we're going to verify this later on. Okay, so stick with me. Don't count it out as, you know, he pulling these straws out of thin air. We're going to verify this. Okay? So let's look at our third account. So we've got the day the time was established. We've got the manna account. Now let's look at this account here. And I'm calling this seeking a resting place. I'm going to the book of Numbers chapter 10. Numbers chapter 10. Follow me over there, y'all. Numbers chapter 10, starting with verse 11. Okay. So, Numbers chapter 10, verse 11, it says, and it came to be on the 20th day of the second new moon in the second year that the cloud was taken up from above the dwelling place of the witness, and the children of Israel departed, setting out from the wilderness of Sinai, and the cloud dwelt on it in the wilderness of Paran. So we've established in Numbers chapter 10, verse 11, that we are on the 20th day of the second month. 20th day of the second month. That word for moon, again, I'm going to drill this until you check it for yourself. Look in the Hebrew, it's Kadash. It means month. It does not mean the literal moon. Okay? There is a word for literal moon. If you go back to Exodus, go back to Genesis, and look at any account of the actual moon and look up that word. It is Yerach. Yerach. That's the word for the literal moon. Okay. So anyway, let's jump on down to Numbers 33. So we've established the 20th day of the second month. What's going on here? Where is he going with this? I'll show you. Numbers chapter 10 verse 33 says, so they set out from the mountain of Yahuwah on a journey of 3 days. Okay? We started on the 20th and we're setting out on a journey of 3 days. And the ark of the covenant of Yah went before them for 3 days' journey to seek out a resting place for them. Here's my question to you. Why do you believe they were seeking a resting place for the ark? Okay, now that the Jeopardy music's finished playing on your end and in your mind, as you thought about it, it's for the Shabbat. If that's what you guessed, you're right. Because they could not travel on the Shabbat. So in 3 days' journey, they knew they had to be done in order to break their tents down and set everything up so that that following day they could rest. I hope that makes sense. Okay? So here's the deal. If they started out on the 20th would be day 1 of their journey. The 21st would be day 2 of their journey. The 22nd would be day 3 of their journey. Not the Shabbat, but the journey. Giving them an opportunity to break down, set up the tent, and by the next day, sundown or whatever, they could rest, making the 23rd of the second month a Shabbat. Rewind what I just said, listen to it again, beginning with Numbers 10 and 11. And I pray you get that understanding, okay? 3 days journey. According to the law, understand, they could not be traveling. They could not be traveling on the Shabbat. So they would have had to break everything down and set up so that they could be resting the next day, okay? The 23rd of the second month, okay? All right, let's move on. Are you familiar with what people refer to as Passion Week? I pray you are. So Passion Week is what a lot of people refer to as the week that the Messiah was crucified in. That week that Messiah was crucified in. And I hope we can all agree that month 1 on the 14th day is Passover. I hope there's no debate about that. And that the 15th day begins unleavened bread. That can be verified in Leviticus 23 verses 5 through 7. I hope there's no dispute about that. But there's a reason you need to know this, because my question is, what weekdays do these fall on? What day of the week does Passover fall on? And what day of the week does the festival of unleavened bread fall on? Here's why I asked that, because this is something that always stuck out in my head. Walk with me over to the book of Daniel, chapter 9. Daniel chapter 9. So you can see my train of thought and how our study went among me and my household. Because that's all I'm doing here is I'm sharing with you guys our study. You build on it. You know, you reprove what you need to reprove. You take what you need, but this is our study. Although, Yah deals with us all. He opens our eyes. And I believe it's good information, but we got a comment section, so feel free to put a comment where you see fit. So look, Daniel chapter 9, we're going to go to verse 26 and 27. So we know Daniel was given prophecy, right? And here's what he says. And after 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off and have not. There's the subject, Messiah cut off, right? Messiah cut off. Isn't that what we're talking about? When does the Passover fall? When was Messiah crucified? We agree that Passover and Messiah's crucifixion was one and the same date. I pray we do. I pray we do, because that's a whole nother study if you don't understand that. So, after the 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off and have not, and the people of a coming prince shall destroy the city and the set apart place. And the end of it is with a flood, and wastes are decreed, and fighting until the end. And he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, and in the middle of the week he shall put an end to slaughtering and meal offering, And on the wing of abominations he shall lay waste, even until the complete end, and that which is decreed is poured out on the one who lays waste. So remember, even Messiah told you to be aware of this prophecy. Even Messiah told you that once he was crucified, you need to be aware, because soon after that, the abomination of desolation was going to be coming in. All of that happened in 70 AD, that's what he was talking about. Okay? But this also says that there was a covenant confirmed for many, but in the middle of the week, Messiah was cut off. Okay, well, check it out. It's 7 days in a week, right? Can you divide 7 in half? If you drew a line straight down the middle of 7, you would have 3 days on one side of that line, 3 days on the other side of that line, and that fourth day will be right in the middle. What's the fourth day of the week? Fourth day of the week is Wednesday, is that correct? Or what we refer to as Wednesday. And I'm all good with everybody referring to, the days as day 1, day 2, because of the pagan deities affixed to those names. I understand that. I'm only using those terms for those who don't understand that as a common term for us to understand what we're speaking of. Day 4 is what we're speaking of. Okay, what people refer to as Wednesday, right? So Daniel says that he was cut off in the middle of the week, day 4. Is that verified in Scripture? Does that bear out in Scripture? That's the question. So here's how the week went, right? 1/12, month number 1, day 12, AB of 12. Let's look at Matthew 26. Let's look at Matthew chapter 26. I'm going to walk this down as the events occurred in Passion Week and show you what day of the week each of these events occurred. Okay? And if we can show that the crucifixion happened Twilight Tuesday going into sundown, which would make sundown Tuesday night Wednesday, correct? Meaning he was in the grave Wednesday, day 1. Thursday during the day, day 2. Friday during the day, day 3, right? The prophecy of Jonah, 3 days and 3 nights. And we know that by the time Miriam and them got there, in the dawning of the first day, he was already gone, right? So we can verify that that was a Wednesday. Then that would mean that on your calendar, in the first month, the 14th and 15th days of the month would have a day affixed to them that you should be able to check your calendar by. Does that make sense? Okay, good. I pray that makes sense. So, Matthew 26:1, and it says, "And it came to be, when Yahushua ended all these words, he said to his taught ones, you know that after 2 days the Passover takes place, and the Son of Adam is to be delivered up to be impaled." So if you didn't know that the day that Yahushua was impaled and Passover were one and the same day, there you have it. Okay? So that's the 12th. That's Sunday. First day of the week. You with me? Hope you with me. Matthew 26:17. Matthew 26, jump down to 17. Okay, now, here's the thing. We're aware that unleavened bread comes after Passover, right? So you can understand when we read where man has transposed something, okay? So this reads, "And on the first day of unleavened bread, the taught ones came to Yahushua, saying to him, where do you wish us to prepare to eat Passover?" If this was the first day of unleavened bread, will we be preparing to eat Passover? Go back and read Leviticus 23, starting in verse 5, and read the order in which these days fall. And you see that Passover comes before unleavened bread. So I'm giving you a timestamp. I don't want you to focus on that unleavened bread because that's out of order. But I'm giving you a timestamp. Okay? Timestamp is they're telling him, where do you want us to prepare to eat this supper that we're going to eat together? Okay? So this is a Monday. Jump to verse 20. And when evening came, he sat down with the 12. Right? Evening came, he sat down with the 12. This would have made that a Tuesday. That would have made that evening of Monday dawning into Tuesday, if that makes sense. Dawning into Tuesday, right? Jump to Matthew 26 and 69. Matthew 26 and 69. Okay? So, we know about Yahushua eating the supper, the Last Supper, with his apostles. He said he was eating with them because he was not going to be able to partake in the Passover with them. I'm just paraphrasing what we jumped over. Because he would not be able to eat Passover with them, he ate this particular supper with them. Okay? Now we're going to read about the events after the supper. Okay? Starting with verse 69. And we're going to go through verse 75. Okay? So, 69. And Kepha sat outside the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him, saying, and you were with Yahushua of Galilee. But Kepha denied it before them all, saying, I do not know what you say. And as he was going out into the porch, another girl saw him and said to those there, and this one was with Yahushua of Nazareth. So again, she's saying, man, this one, he was with them, right? But again, he denied it with an oath, saying, I do not know the man. Verse 73. And after a while, those who stood by came to him, saying to Kepha, for sure, truly, you are one of them too, for even your speech gives you away. Then he began to curse and swear, saying, I do not know the man. And immediately a cock crowed. And Kepha remembered the word of Yahushua, who said to him, before a cock crows, you shall deny me 3 times. And going out, he wept bitterly. Now, I want to ask y'all this, because after the supper, we know that Yahushua went out and there was the prayer in the valley of Gethsemane, right? Where he prayed for strength to endure what was getting ready to happen. After that, we know that Judas, the betrayer, brought the men who came and took Yahushua away, right? So what we just read was what happened after that. His apostles were still hanging around. Kepha was hanging around to see what happened after that. When does the cock crow? Because remember, they ate supper. Remember I said Monday dawning into Tuesday? They ate supper. The cock crows in the morning, don't it? So this is Tuesday morning when the cock crows. This is Tuesday morning. Okay? This is the morning of the 14th. This will be the morning of the 14th. Before sunrise. Cock crows early morning. This is before the sunrise. So let's jump over to Matthew 27. I'm going to keep verifying everything we're saying according to Scripture. Okay? The very first verse says, Matthew 27:1, and morning having come, all the chief priests and elders of the people took counsel against Yahushua so as to put him to death. Now the sun has risen on this particular day. We read the cock crow, and now the sun has risen on this day. This is day 14 of month number 1 on your calendar. Verifying those days, okay? We're going to read through. We're not going to read through it. But what I want you to understand is everything, you read through it. Everything from verse 2 all the way through verse, I want to say 46. Let me see. Through 46. Yes. 46. And at about the ninth hour, Yahusha cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is translated, my power, why have you forsaken me? Okay, we know that that's when Yahusha's on the stake. And what I want you to understand is that from the verse we read, verse 1, where it says the sun rose on the 14th day, all the way up to that all takes place in the same day. That's all the same day. This is still the 14th day. And we read that the ninth hour got there. We read in Mark or John's translation, I don't remember which, that from the 6th hour to the ninth hour, the sky was darkened. Okay? This was literally twilight. Twilight means between the evenings. Okay? In the Hebrew word is arab. It's a mix of day and night. It's not complete nightfall, but it's not complete day anymore. Twilight, between the two lights. The light that governs the day and the light that governs the night. We read about that in Genesis, remember? So in between those two lights, does that make sense? All that happens. That's day 14, right? By twilight. Let's go to verse 57. Pick it up at verse 57. Okay? Verse 57 reads, and when evening came, so we verified, right? Yahusha was crucified by twilight. And if we know the scripture of Passover and how the lamb is supposed to be slaughtered, we know that fits. Had to be by twilight. Now we're reading that after he gave up the spirit, evening has now come. Full on evening. We're no longer between the two lights, the one that governs the day and the one that governs the night. We're in full nighttime, right? So when evening came, there came a rich man from Ramathaim named Yosef or Joseph, who himself had also become a taught one of Yahusha. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Yahusha. Then Pilate commanded the body to be given. Going through verse 60, okay? And having taken the body, Yosef wrapped it in clean linen, laid it in his new tomb, which he had hewn out of rock, and he rolled a large stone against the door of the tomb and went away. Okay? So, question. Just make sure y'all up on what's going on. Do y'all understand why Joseph, the strong, the fit man, the man who was studied, who was a taught one of Yahusha, had to remove that body before the morning? Do y'all know the law of the Passover? That the lamb cannot remain there by the morning? That's why that had to happen. I pray y'all understand that. That's why that had to happen. His body had to be removed. His bones could not be broken. There was a practice among the Romans of breaking the bones of the men that were crucified. Joseph or Yosef came in there and took the body down before the bones could be broken, because the lamb's bone could not be broken, and so that the body would not remain there by the next day. So he got him down. You understand that? He got him down. Okay. Move on to verse 62. Jump to verse 62. Matthew 27, verse 62. And it reads, on the next day, which was after the preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered together to Pilate. 63, saying, Master, we remember while he was still alive, how that deceiver said, after 3 days I am raised. Command then that the tomb be safeguarded until the third day, lest his taught ones come by night and steal him away, and should say to the people, he was raised from the dead, and the last deception shall be worse than the first. Okay, here's what I want you to understand. On the next day, which was after the preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered together. What preparation were they talking about? They were preparing for the Sabbath, right? But they weren't preparing for the weekly Sabbath. No, they were preparing for the Sabbath that was Wednesday. You understand? The 15th day of the first month. What Sabbath is that? You know? Again, go back to Leviticus 23, because what you'll see is that is what? That's the Feast of Unleavened Bread. That's a Sabbath. That's the Sabbath that was being referred to. So that's prep day. You understand? That is the 15th day of the first month. There's your timestamp, okay? Let's jump over to Matthew 28. Matthew 28. That's Wednesday, 15th day of the month. Got it? You just did Passover the night before at twilight, Tuesday night, dawning into Wednesday. Okay? Very next day, Festival of Unleavened Bread. I pray we agree on that. Okay? So Matthew 28:1 says, "But late in the Sabbath, as it was dawning into day 1 of the week, Miriam from Magdala and the other Miriam came to see the tomb." I want you to jump to Luke 24:1. Luke chapter 24 and verse 1. "But on day 1 of the week, at early dawn, they came to the tomb, bringing the spices which they had prepared." Okay? So, this is now the weekly Sabbath. This is the end of the weekly Sabbath. If you go back to 28:1, you see that this was the weekly Sabbath. How do we know that? Because it says that as it was dawning into day 1 of the week. Okay? So this would have been the 18th. This would have been the 18th. Day 1 would have been the 19th day of the month. And as we understand from what we read, Messiah was already risen. That Sunday, what we refer to as Sunday, Messiah was already gone. You understand? So that's another timestamp. Okay? That's another timestamp for you. Messiah was crucified the same way as the Passover lamb. We've seen that. We verified that with Matthew 26:1, that was twilight, Tuesday evening, 14th, dawning into Wednesday, which would have been the 15th. This is command. You understand? This is commandment. Okay? Now here's what I want to say to you guys. That's 4 different witnesses, right? 4 different witnesses to test your calendar by. See if your days line up. But if that's not enough for you, I'm going to post an image here of the priestly calendar. The calendar that Enoch tells us about. The calendar that the Zadokite priests, who were the keepers of the Qumran scrolls. You familiar with the Qumran scrolls? You may have heard to them referred to as the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is the calendar that they used. And what I want to tell you is you'll see these same days. The first day of the year being a Wednesday. The 23rd of the second month. The 14th and the 15th of the first month. You'll see these same days fall in the same places on the priestly calendar that Enoch, the Zadokites, used and was found in the Qumran or the Dead Sea Scrolls. I mean, hey, I'm just giving you the witnesses. You make of it what you will. I really could go further into debunking the lunar calendar, debunking the lunar Sabbath, or further study into the lunar Sabbath and where that comes from, where the lunar calendar comes from. But what I'm going to do at my Isha's suggestion and my wife's suggestion is I'm going to make that a whole different study. And I apologize because there was so much of that information. That's what took me so long to put this together. But just separating and breaking it down into parts allowed me to present just these witnesses to verify your calendar, because that's really what most of you guys' questions stemmed from. But as I said, as I was going through the history, I just kept turning over so much information about the lunar calendar, the lunar Sabbath, and the Zadokite priesthood, that I felt like it would be unfair of me to have turned over that information and not present it to whoever else out there it's for to receive, just like it was presented to me. So I'm going to present that information to you guys, but in a couple of other videos. I'm going to separate it into different parts. Bear with me, y'all. You know, look, Project Wake Up Jacob is what I'm presenting this on, but y'all got to remember that, you know, me and my Isha, we do this of our own volition, just us. I got a full-time job also. We have 8 children that we homeschool. My Isha writes. If you're not familiar with her channel, you see it. I put it in the beginning of every video. That's the Hebrew Griot. She also writes. That's her job. So we got a lot of other stuff going on as well. But her ministry on the Hebrew Griot channel, her YouTube page, our children, that takes up a lot of time. And I'm not giving an excuse. I'm praying that you guys understand why there's so much time in between the videos that I put out. I don't have a desire to necessarily try to present something to you guys every week, because again, I'm not your teacher. Okay? The Ruach is your teacher. It's your job to study. Hakeem, is your job to lead your household. Okay? This is what I do in my household, and as I find things that I find bear out in scripture, I share them with you guys so that you can test the scriptures by the scriptures, so that you can test the spirit by the spirit. This is what we're supposed to do. I put those scriptures in the beginning of everything that we present in Corinthians that show that this is what we're supposed to do. If I feel like God gave something to me, I should be able to present it to you, and you as a studied individual should be able to hear it out and say, Cain, yeah, that's scripture, or nah, that's not right. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm doing my job by bringing what I believe y'all gave me. You have to do your job and study to show yourself approved. Because if I'm stumbling, you got to catch me. And if what I'm presenting is right, and it is for the edification of the body, well, hey, let all esteem be to Yahuwah by Hashem Yahusha. So, with that, I'm going to close. Shalom again, fam. I pray all of that was clear and understandable. I'll add in the things that I told you I would add in, and put you a few links in the bottom. All right? Shalom, fam. Y'all blessed to y'all.